Nancy is solving another mystery at Ned's crime-ridden college. Nancy and Bess stay with Kristen Seidel, president of Theta Pi sorority, from book 63. It took me a long time to figure out what book Kristen is from, because she was such a minor character, I didn't even mention her in my review. Now I feel like I've failed as a book reviewer.
Argofunk Book Review, Argofunk Book Review.
Rosie Lopez is being crowned Emerson's sweetheart after a basketball game. On the way there, we learn she's rivals with the Delta Zeta sorority, especially Tamara Carlson. The team loses the game, which angers Rosie's boyfriend, Casey Thompson. He yells at the Theta Pi's. Rosie dumps him in front of the entire school. Casey promises she'll be sorry. Wow, Rosie has 3 enemies before the end of Chapter 1. I think I know who's going to be the victim of the book. Sure enough, Nancy and her friends leave the dance party after midnight? Nancy, does your father know how late you stayed up with Ned? Nancy finds Rosie's unconscious body in the snow outside of the student union. The culprit knocked her out with something heavy, then dragged her here. They left a threatening note signed Cupid. Cupid used square, block-printed letters. Nancy assumes Cupid wanted to disguise their handwriting. At the end of the book, Nancy recognizes Cupid's handwriting on a backpack label. So the culprit wasn't trying to be sneaky, they just have bad handwriting. Rosie won't be the Emerson sweetheart anymore. As Nancy says, a concussion is serious and requires several days of recovery. Speaking from personal experience, are you, Nancy? Tamara is hostile and she lies about her alibi. Casey is also hostile. He claims he spent the night playing games at the arcade. Nancy calls the arcade a few times, trying to confirm Casey's alibi, but everyone there assumes she's lying because she has a crush on an employee. I guess the Tuesday night arcade operator is a major hottie. The last person to see Rosie before the attack is Mike Fitzgerald. He is best friends with all the Theta Pi girls. He gives Nancy a tour of the student union and claims that Tamara was there shortly before the attack. Nancy realizes the attack occurred inside the boiler room. She's caught by a beefy man named Max Dombrowski. He's part of the maintenance staff. He says this area is off limits. Cupid removes a light switch panel, so when Nancy tries to turn on the light, she gets an electric shock. She confronts Fitz, who is just inside the room. He gets a little touchy, and he says his older sister Jessie died last year. Tamara confronts Nancy again, but later Tamara's boyfriend clears her alibi. Cupid paints a threatening message on the Theta Pi building, and Cupid cuts the brakes on a car. Nancy slows the car down by switching to a lower gear. One sister gets sick after eating some chocolate. When Bess says the chocolate smells like peanuts, Nancy realizes this chocolate is super disgusting. Nancy realizes the chocolates are poisoned. Cupid used a syringe to inject rat poison into the candy. Nancy goes to the hospital, where Casey disguises himself as a doctor to get inside Rosie's private room. Nancy thinks it's a murder attempt, but really, all Casey wants to do is beg Rosie to date him again. He loves her. Nancy rolls her eyes because it's ridiculous to have romance in a mystery book. Nancy, have you read any of the books in this series? You do that all the time. Max's daughter Marina becomes a suspect. Marina was furious when the sorority didn't accept her last year. She attends their Rush Week function just to badmouth the sorority to all the potential applicants. Both Max and Marina have angry confrontations with Nancy. Marina feels no sympathy for the Theta Pi's. Casey looks guilty when Nancy sees syringes in his room. He explains he has diabetes. Shortly after, The hot video arcade operator is able to confirm Casey's alibi. Theta Pi is having a Valentine auction. Nancy makes her Valentine out of a magnifying glass. The auction is fun, but uh-oh, Ned doesn't win Nancy's Valentine. Fitz wins by accident. He thought the magnifying glass meant the Valentine was for a stamp collector. At the sweetheart dance, Fitz asks Nancy to follow him downstairs. He found Rosie's locket inside Max's drawer. Fitz calls the police, but he leaves behind his backpack. That's when Nancy realizes Fitz has the same handwriting as Cupid. The papers inside the backpack confirm Fitz's guilt. It turns out Fitz's sister Jessie is not dead. She dropped out of college last year and moved to Florida to marry her high school sweetheart. Fitz thinks that's as good as her being dead, even though it's definitely not. He blames the Theta Pis for not accepting her into the sorority. Jessie probably would have stayed in school if she had a place to live. That's true, but it's very different from Fitz's claim that he must kill the Theta Pis because they killed his sister. Fitz pulls out a switchblade and forces Nancy into the boiler room, where he plans to burn her alive. She manages to kick the knife away and flip a bunch of fuses, even though her hands are tied. This gets the attention of Ned and Max, who rush downstairs to save Nancy. Ned celebrates a case well solved by giving Nancy a Cupid bracelet. The end. Post-book follow-up. I enjoyed this book. It's interesting all the way through and fairly fast-paced. The various death attempts are the highlight. They're done well, although you could argue Fitz was just trying to scare people, not kill them. I saw other reviewers complain it's too obvious Fitz is a surprise culprit. Part of the problem is that books 88 and 90 had surprise culprits just like him. So when every other book has the same surprise culprit, it's easy to recognize the culprit as the character who's left off the suspect list because they're too darn nice. I thought Fitz was an okay culprit, but his motive is a little weird. Why does he insist that his sister is dead because a sorority rejected her? It sounds like his sister got a happily ever after. Bess's boyfriend Kyle from book 88 reappears. I'm glad they're trying for continuity here, but I don't like Kyle. Why couldn't one of Bess's good boyfriends stick around, instead of one with a murder record who threatened Nancy? Overall, I'd say this was a good one, even if it relies a bit heavily on innocent suspects acting super guilty for no good reason, other than the story wants them to look suspicious. It's far better than the other Valentine's-themed sorority book of the series. I give Nancy Drew Files number 92, My Deadly Valentine, an 8 out of 10.